Test, 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 test.
Are we still? Are we still getting everything ready to go? Okay. And everything is good with our we're good? If we are good to go, we're going to get started. Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. It is Tuesday, February 4th, 2025, and this is the regular governing board meeting for the Litchfield Elementary School District. I hereby call this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda will be the Pledge of Allegiance. If you could please stand and join us. Thank you. Next, we will take a moment of silent reflection. Okay, thank you. Next, we're going to move on to recognitions and celebrations, and this is going to be by Executive Director Nuanez.
Good evening, Madam President, governing board members, Dr. Davidson, fellow cabinet members, and guests, both present and online. It is with immense pride that tonight we celebrate the outstanding achievements of Shannon Lade, Jackie Wagner, and Jamie Stewart for acquiring or maintaining their National Board Certified Teacher status, one of the highest designations a teacher can achieve. This prestigious accomplishment reflects their unwavering commitment to excellence in education and their dedication to the success of every Litchfield learner. Under the leadership of our district's candidate support providers and the support and unwavering commitment of our governing board and executive cabinet, LESD 79 has become one of the districts with the highest, let me repeat this and emphasize this, the highest number of National Board Certified Teachers and candidates in Arizona today. And if we keep on this trajectory within a year, two max, we will be number one. All right. This remarkable achievement exemplifies our district's mission of providing Litchfield learners with a clear path to educational success, ensuring they receive the highest quality instruction from some of the best educators in the state. Please join us in congratulating Shannon, Jackie, and Jamie for their hard-earned success and for setting a standard of excellence that inspires both their colleagues and students. Their dedication strengthens our district and reaffirms our commitment to student success. Thank you for all that you've done. Now, if I can invite you to come and take a picture, come on up. Let's document this momentous occasion. All right. One last thing, as they say, last but not least. Finally, as the Governing Board Appreciation Month, which was January, came to a close, we were scheduled to run a video at the scheduled end of the month board meeting. But as this one got rescheduled, we want to take a moment to express our sincere gratitude for your dedication and leadership. Your commitment to our students, staff, and community makes a lasting impact, and we truly, truly appreciate your service. Although our planned recognition was delayed, we would still love to share a special video featuring heartfelt messages from administrators, students, and support staff. We've got a nice variety of staff across the district. So please take a moment to watch as a small token of our appreciation.
Thank you so much for all of the visits with our showcases and visiting our campuses and seeing all the hard work and good work we're doing and validating that and asking questions and interacting with our staff and students. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Governing board, thank you for all your support.
Thank you.
Thank you to our governing board for all you do to support our schools, from your Pride Awards to your daily commitment to making sure our students have the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, darling.
Thank you to our governing board. You're always so supportive in everything that has to do with online safety for our children, and I always appreciate coming to you.
Thank you so much to the governing board for all of your support for our students and staff. We appreciate you.
Thank you for your support, governing board.
Thank you, governing board. We appreciate all you do. Thank you for your support, governing board.
Thank you.
Thank you, governing board.
Thank you, governing board.
Thank you, governing board. We appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Thank you, governing board members, for all of your work, your support on behalf of your respective communities, but also your support of me as superintendent. Most recently, I was asked about our governing board, and I got to tell you that my response was quite simple. I would put our governing board against any governing board out there in our state. You guys are exceptional leaders. You lead with your heart as well as your mind, and I'm very thankful to be working alongside you to make our district the best in the Southwest Valley. Thanks again.
Thank you once again.
Thank you for putting that video together, Sam. I love me some little kids, so they were very cute. And to all of our staff too. Next, we are going to move on to our public comment section of the agenda. I'm going to read this little disclaimer. Pursuant to Arizona Revised Statutes, ARS 38-431.01H, this agenda item provides an open call to the public, allowing individuals to address the governing board on any issue within the jurisdiction of the board. Items not listed on the agenda may be brought to the governing board's attention under this section of the agenda. Due to the Arizona open meeting law, the governing board cannot discuss or take any action on items not listed on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to ARS 38-431.01H, response to public comment about matters not appearing on the agenda will be limited to individual board members who may ask staff to study the matter, respond to any criticism, or ask that the matter be put on a future agenda for further consideration and decision at a later date. Please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes, and no more than 30 minutes will be devoted to the public comment portion of the agenda. When you approach the podium, please state your name for the record. Our first speaker tonight is going to be Mr. Mike Finnegan.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Finnegan. For the LASD School Board in 2021 and the rest of the nation, the words diversity, equity, and inclusion were words that became magic. But what do they mean? And sweeping claims were made by past and present members of the LASD School Board in 2021 for such a policy. A lot of time, money, and resources were spent making it the district's policy. Synergy consultants were hired for $10,000 to teach the dysfunctional board how to work together and include community input in order to implement this ideology. District behavioral data was presented showing Black students made up approximately 7% of the student population, but were being disciplined 15 to 20% more than the other students of white, Asian, and Hispanic populations. This appeared to be unfair, and a diversity, equity, inclusion policy was needed to remedy it, so we were told. 4 long years have now passed since its implementation, and it's time for this district to present hard evidence showing what this investment of time, money, and resources to create DEI have been. Many in education and on school boards have criticized that tests and behavioral and disciplinary imbalances or other inequities are unfair. The tests or the discipline problems are not unfair. Life is unfair, and the tests and behavior data are measuring the results. But who has control of life? Who has control of the past? Who has control of the culture that people have in the present, or which they have inherited from the past? It is time for this district to throw out the toxic alphabet soup of critical race theory, CRT, DIE, conscious discipline, CD, and social emotional learning, SEL, and use its publicly funded tax dollars, increasing proficiencies in ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. As a result of the 2024 elections, the woke spigot in public education is being turned off. America has voted it out as un-American. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next speaker is going to be Becca. I'm sorry, I do not want to say your last name wrong.
Hello, I'm Becca Bolio, and I am here to talk about the ban on Teachers Pay Teachers. It was made without input or prior knowledge to teachers. And the reasoning for the ban includes concerns over network security, yet the district itself has faced cyber threats and data breaches without effective preventative measures. Instead of banning an essential resource for teachers, the technology department should focus on improving overall cybersecurity measures to protect sensitive and district data. Malware risk exists across multiple platforms, not just Teachers Pay Teachers. A blanket ban does not address the root issue of securing the district's network properly. There are numerous websites shared with staff on a weekly basis that do not require account creation, including AI resources. How are these sites vetted and ensure they are safer than TPT? The role of the IT department is to find real solutions to security concerns, not simply to restrict access to tools that benefit teachers and students. If certain materials pose security risks, the district should implement vetting protocols rather than outright banning valuable resources. Also, a lot of our teachers in the district do not get any curriculum, middle school, music, art, etc. So they actually pay with their own money for TPT resources to do the curriculum. So without having TPT, all these teachers will not have what they need. We always talk about the curriculum we currently use having gaps, and we need to not penalize the entire district for a few people's actions if it is about using the curriculum wrong. We have to have open discussion and direct discussion with individuals involved that are not using it appropriately. And so I have a petition from Valensoto with all the signatures. And I have also teacher quotes on how they use TPT in the classroom, many being our resource rooms that do not have curriculum. And so they have to use Teachers Pay Teachers out of their own money. We're not asking for money from anybody to do those small resource areas and to provide a great education. So thank you so much.
Our next speaker is going to be Elizabeth Blarn.
Elizabeth Warren. I am a seventh grade history teacher at Belen Soto, and I'm also here to talk about the Teacher Pay Teachers ban. I am one of those teachers who has no curriculum. I'm giving nothing by the district to teach my class. I'm given standards. And a lot of my lessons come from Teachers Pay Teachers out of my own pocket, and I don't complain about that. What I'm upset about is that I found out on Friday that come Monday, that would be taken away from me and that I could no longer get to Teachers Pay Teachers. No discussion, no conversation, no nothing to say that it's been used inappropriately. Every one of my lessons is standard based. We have great scores and show growth. I use it for my reading standards to help enhance that, along with my history standards. I'm a certified teacher. I have a 4-year degree from ASU. I have a master's degree from GCU in educational leadership. I am certified to be a principal, but I'm being told I can't pick the curriculum off of Teachers Pay Teachers. So it just feels very like I am not being treated like a professional, and I feel like many teachers are getting that message that we are not professionals and we cannot choose the work that is being used in our classrooms. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to move on to the next item of the agenda, which is the adoption
I'm
of the
sorry.
agenda. I'm sorry, yes.
That was the conclusion of the public comment.
Yes, that was conclusion of public. comment.
Okay, I would like to make a request for a future agenda item for the board to discuss the appropriate and inappropriate usage of Teachers Pay Teachers and what that could look like based on our current policies, what the issues are, and make sure that everyone can have a discussion and make sure we're on the same page. Thank you.
Now we are going to move on, unless anybody else, anything else? No? Good. Okay. We're going to move on to the adoption of agenda and approval of consent agenda. I'll go through and see if anyone has any items that they wish to pull off of the consent agenda. We're going to start with Mr. Mikes first tonight. Do you have anything you wish to pull off the consent agenda?
I don't have anything.
Mr. Owens?
I do not.
Ms. Wallace?
I do not.
Ms. Moran?
I do not.
I don't either, so if someone would like to make a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second from Mr. Mikes, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Next, we will move on to our action items. We're going to start with 8.1, which is School 17 name recommendation. This will be started by Dr. Davidson.
All right. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, community, and those online. This agenda item is just an amazing item for me to be able to bring to the board this evening. Certainly, you had a chance, board, to hear in one of our most recent meetings some conversation around the 2 different names that we are considering for School 17. One of the recommendations from the board was to seek feedback from the community on the why behind the names that might be chosen, as well as maybe just gathering some responses, some community feedback. And so before I ask the board to consider our recommendation, I certainly wanted to share that we did provide an opportunity for our community, external and internal, to provide feedback. The responses that we got back were amazing, recognizing both individuals as community members, as American heroes, as starters of the district. I mean, we could go on and on. We got some great comments. And I think if any of those people that are listening that responded could come here today and argue their particular points. I think that the thing that pushed your administrative team to a particular recommendation tonight, and that is to recommend School 17 be named after Major Troy Gilbert. The reason for that corresponded to some of the survey data that we asked our staff and our students to respond to. And I didn't see this one coming, so I wanted to highlight it before I asked Mr. Jenke to join us tonight. If you remember, some of you are parents, we asked our staff, our parents and our students
to please rank order a list of opportunities. That's part of our district mission, student success, but really giving them opportunities. Our families, out of the rank order, ranked that they would like our students to have more opportunities connected to military leadership. That was the #1 rank order of opportunities for our students on behalf of our families. On behalf of our students, that was the second highest opportunity, was a connection to our military. And just knowing that Luke Air Force Base is in our backyard, and certainly the sacrifice that Major Gilbert had given for his community and his country, we felt like it was just the right thing to do to bring that as the name for School 17 tonight. So with that said, before I ask the board to vote, I'd like to honor and recommend also Mr. Jenkins, please join me here. He'll share some insight, but I wanted just to highlight some of the team members that are here tonight as well, and I do believe they'd probably like to share a few comments as well before our vote, if Madam President, if you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
All right, certainly. Well, I'll have Mr. Jenke go and share a few comments about the work he's been doing, and then I'll call some people to the podium. Thank you.
So I'll certainly be brief. We did share both of the stories from both Mr. Rayner and Major Gilbert with our staff members and our students. And the feedback that we got from the staff on the campus and from the students was certainly that both applicants, or both people that we were considering, were certainly worthy of recognition. Our students were definitely leaning more towards Major Gilbert. They thought that his story and the character traits that he showed, certainly with the sacrifice and the way that he lived his life, was something that foundationally was a great thing that they could aspire to be, and that was a great thing to build our school upon. So that was, from a student perspective and from a staff perspective, that's where they were leaning. So if there was a vote, and we didn't do a vote, but that's kind of where we were leaning as a staff and as a school.
On behalf of the agenda tonight, we have a gentleman who's online with us, governing board members, retired 4-star General Robin Rand, who certainly had an awesome relationship and a great connection with Major Gilbert. General Rand, are you out there with us tonight?
Yes, sir, I am. I am with you.
All right, General Rand, if you'd like to take a few moments. And
Yeah, I told, first of all, I have 3 minutes, so I'm going to go fast. First, thank you to the board. I'm truly great. Can you hear me? Just to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm truly grateful for what you do. You raise my grandchildren, and I never take for granted what our educators do. So thank you, thank you, thank you. How do I describe Troy and his family in 3 minutes? First of all, I'm just a wingman to Troy Gilbert. 3 points I want to make, if I could. Why School 17 should be named Troy Gilbert Elementary. First of all, is Troy. Second is his family. And third is your families. The first point is Troy. I'm going to make it really succinct. He's a hero. Simply. This is not political. This is not bipartisan. He took an oath to the Constitution to defend us. And on 27 November 2006, he did that. Let me remind you that I promise you that Troy did not wake up that day going, I want to be a hero. In fact, I know what he really wanted to do was move closer and closer to coming home from a deployment to Iraq to be with Ginger and his 5 children in January. Unfortunately, the enemy got a vote and he didn't make it home. But 19 special operators did make it home because of his actions. I don't have time to go into what Troy did, but by any definition, he fulfilled his oath to our Constitution. The second thing I would remind you is the legacy of Troy Gilbert, his wife, Ginger. When I saw Ginger shortly after, 6 months after Troy died, when I met her, when I returned to Luke, I had known Ginger for a long time, but when I returned to Luke and met with her face to face, she said to me, my toughest duties today are to get up and brush my teeth, but I have 5 children I have to take care of. Let me tell you what Ginger Gilbert has become. A renowned author, a speaker, a mother, a wife, a widow. Let me tell you about those 5 children. We'll start with Boston. An intercollegiate soccer player, a master's degree in leadership. Their son, Grayson, a Clemson graduate who's pursuing his degree now in physical and health and science. A daughter who will graduate, Isabel, from college this summer. The twin daughters, Aspen and Annalise, who are students at Auburn, freshman students. By any definition, this family is what resilience and perseverance is. And then, as you mentioned earlier tonight, the third point I want to make is your families. Luke Air Force Base is going to be around for decades. Their families are going to attend your schools. Their moms and dads are going to be willing to do what Troy Gilbert did on 27 November 2006. That their children can go to a school and that is called the Troy Gilbert Elementary will be a reminder in a way to say thank you for these families who are willing to stand in the gap for all of us. To me, it's a slam dunk. I know I'm biased, but I strongly encourage you to name this school after Troy and his family. I'll stop there. Thank you for this opportunity to talk about the man and friend, the father and husband that I revere. Over to you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, General Rand. Just a note as well as General Rand talked about Major Gilbert's children. At the time of his departure, we had 3 of his children at Corte Sierra as well. So I just want to remind the board of that connection. On behalf of this agenda tonight, we also have General Berkland and his wife, Wing Commander of the 56th Fighter Wing at Luke Air Force Base. Thank you for being here, sir, ma'am. Also, we have with us tonight Samuel Smith and Stacy Holland, Luke Air Force Base School Liaison. So thank you for joining us this evening. And certainly, I'd like to close the agenda item again before I make the final request and offer an opportunity for Miss Ginger Ravella, Major Gilbert's widow, to come and speak and address the board. She also brought with her her husband, retired Colonel Jim Ravella. So thank you for being here, ma'am. The floor is yours.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. My name is Ginger Gilbert Ravella. I just appreciate being able to speak for a few minutes. Came all the way from Tennessee for 12 hours for this meeting because I think my late husband Troy would have done the same thing for me if the shoe was on the other foot. Briefly, just to tell you who I am and why I'm here. I grew up in a little town in eastern New Mexico. My parents were dedicated their entire lives to education as teachers and administrators at all the levels, elementary, middle school, high school, college. I then spent the next 18 years of my life pursuing my own higher education while simultaneously falling in love, marrying, and following the path of a very handsome young man named Troy Gilbert. Troy was the first person in his family to graduate from college and the only one to ever become an officer in the military. His dream was to fly fighters in the Air Force, and he fulfilled that dream in the cockpit of the F-16. I know many of you have already read about him and heard General Rand so eloquently speak about him and all of us talked on that Zoom call, which was so great. So I'm also limited on time, so I just want to sum up the man he was in just a few quick statements. I knew him better than anyone else in the world. So I hope the simplicity of my words still holds the weight that they deserve. Troy was an officer and a gentleman. He was an incredibly selfless human. a devoted father, an amazing husband, a humble leader, a courageous warrior, a talented fighter pilot, faithful son, brother, and friend. But most of all, he was a man of God who lived a life that daily reflected the two greatest commandments to love the Lord and to love others. Troy's last heroic act on the battlefields in the deserts of western Iraq near Baghdad on November 27th, 2006. It was epic, and no doubt about that. He gave his life in a harrowing mission, saving the lives of over 20 special operators and numerous nearby Army cavalry soldiers. He won many distinguished medals that day. Like I said, it was epic, but it was also expected. Expected because I knew the man Troy was and the oath that he took. In both big ways and small ways, Troy always lived a life of sacrifice, determination, always to do the right thing and to have compassion for those in need. He was always ready to help and ready to serve. Troy left me behind. Our bright future together ended, and our 5 precious children, all under the age of 9 years old, were left without a father. My oldest 2 boys were in 2nd grade and kindergarten and sitting in their little desks right down the road from here at Corte Sierra Elementary School when I got that fateful knock at my front door on a Monday morning right here in Litchfield Park. Our lives were irrevocably never the same. The grief and loss oftentimes felt unbearable. But in the children's and my darkest moments, this community wrapped its arms around us. The Litchfield School District was so kind and so full of grace to us. Y'all gave my children a loving and quality education when they needed it the very most. I'll never forget their teachers, Miss Paulson and Mrs. Santos. Also Luke Air Force Base and our church, Desert Springs community. There's nothing that any of them didn't do for us in those dark days. Troy's story was indeed bigger than life, and the long 10-year journey searching for his remains after they were taken by the insurgents that he was gunning for. It was a miraculous journey of him finally coming home to us in 2016 and is a tale worthy of telling your students. We miss Troy's light, his laughter, and his love every single day. And I've now spent the last 18 years without him since he's been gone, doing everything in my power to carry on Troy's legacy and memory by not just raising his children along with the help of Jim, with the same principles that mattered to Troy and I from the very beginning. Those children are now ages 29 to 19. But also, I want to carry on his legacy by trying to emulate Troy's path of selfless service to others. So to close, thank you for considering Troy's name for your new school. Thank you for saying his name, actually. I missed the sound of it. Thank you for doing your due diligence to give this amazing new school an equally amazing legacy name. My children and I would be honored to see Major Troy Gilbert on the side of the building. I cannot think of a better way to encourage the next generation to pursue their dreams, to stand up for what's right, and to overcome challenges when kids are asking them, why is your school named after this man? Troy's legacy of character, courage, patriotism, and heroism, I have no doubt, will leave lasting fingerprints on their young lives as well. Thank you so much.
All right, the Governing Board, Madam President, certainly you have the agenda item before you, and our recommendation tonight is to name School 17 Troy Gilbert Elementary as the permanent name for that school when it's completed. So Mr. Jenke and I will stand for any questions.
Mr. Mikes, did you have any questions or comments?
I don't have any questions. Comments are many swirling around my head as far as what I just heard, and the amazing legacy that he had, amazing story of what I had a chance to dive into, and we're honored to have his widow here to talk about him. So we appreciate the story and the information.
Mr. Owens? Ms. Wallace?
I have no questions, but thank you so much for coming for 12 hours to share that with all of us. It was very, very touching, and it will be an honor after this vote to be able to name a school after your late husband and a hero to both the nation and our community.
Ms. Moran.
I agree, no questions, but I am privileged and honored to be able to see Major Troy Gilbert's name on the side of one of our buildings and to say his name over and over and over again in remembrance.
I don't have any questions either. Sorry, a little emotional. Thank you for coming and sharing your story with us. And thank you to all of the people that came and spoke about this man and what a legacy it will be to have our school named after him after we officially vote on it. I think we know how this is going to go. And thank you to your family. He didn't just make a sacrifice, your family did. And so thank you for what you guys sacrificed as well for our country and for the men that were able to come back. And I'm just a little emotional, so I'm just going to ask if anybody would like to make a motion.
I move to approve the name for School 17 as Troy Gilbert Elementary School.
I will second.
Having a motion from Mr. Owens and a second from Ms. Moran, I will call for the vote. Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I am also a yay. Motion passes. We have a amazing name for our new school, so let's.
Governing board, just because we don't get this opportunity very often and we have some guests with us tonight, would you all come down and join for a picture on behalf of School 17, please?
Yes, and then we were going to take like
A little bit of break? Sounds good. Ruben, you guys good?
Okay, if everyone is ready, we're gonna get back into this agenda. That was the most fun, exciting part of the night, though. That was super great, and I'm glad that we got to do that. Next, we're gonna move on to 8.2, which is superintendent goal update. This will be Dr. Davidson.
Thank you, President Zinema, members of the board. And I'm sad just to think that this item is not near as exciting as that other one, but bear with me. This is a modification to goal number 2, per one of the documents connected to my evaluation. And it was really just to accurately reflect and provide a broader picture to the stewardship of L. Thomas Heck School right now. It once read, or at least the proposal, the way it read before, was to identify the type of magnet school for the future K-8 L. Thomas Heck Elementary School. Change to it with board approval would be to provide alternative pathways for the repurposing of L. Thomas Heck Elementary School, including but not limited to revenue-based opportunities and use of space by internal and external partners. So just wanted to really give it a broad brush. So I'll stand for any questions.
Mr. Mikes, did you have any questions about this item, which you weren't there for our thing, so maybe it wasn't fair to pick you first when we had his mid-year review. So I'm gonna go to Mr. Owens next, and then I can come back to you because you weren't, unless you have something to say. Nope, oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Thanks. No, I don't have any questions about the updated goal there.
Mr. Owens.
Yeah, just I definitely think it's a more appropriate goal. It's obviously something that you're going to be able to accomplish now because there might be an alternative. And so I'm just looking forward to finding out the ways to repurpose that when there's, this decision is based on a lot of factors. And one of those is making sure that we are good stewards of our resources. And so if, whatever that may include, that's best for our students while also taking that into consideration, we'll probably do it. So just looking forward to those ideas that you present.
Thank you.
Ms. Wallace.
I have no questions. Thank you.
Ms. Moran.
Yeah, no questions, just a similar commentary in that, the background behind this is that we initially thought this would be a magnet school. And then having not done this before, we found out that we have many options that we might be able to put on the table to discuss on how to use this property in the future. And so I agree with Board Member Owens that I'm looking forward to finding out what those feasible options are and how we can best utilize this property.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I don't have any questions either. I am glad that we are updating this so that it can accurately reflect what it is that we'll be working on this year. And I also look forward to seeing what the options end up being and making sure that we are utilizing our space the most financially responsible way. With that, if someone would like to make a motion.
I move to approve the update to goal number 2 as presented. I will second.
Having a motion from Ms. Wallace and a second from Ms. Moran, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Next, we are going to move on to item 8.3, which is consideration and possible adoption of resolution providing for all matters related to the sale and issuance of school improvement bonds of the district. This is going to be by our CFO, Vaughn.
Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining me tonight to allow us to move forward in the sale of bonds related to our most recent successful bond election in November of 2023. The attachments on the agenda item include a resolution allowing the district to move forward, related agreements connected to the bond sale process, and disclosures the district will be making to potential buyers of the district bonds. The sale is consistent with the plans for the bond program previously presented to the governing board, and this sale in particular will primarily support the construction of Troy Gilbert Elementary School and front office security upgrades district-wide. After tonight, our next step will be meeting with rating agencies and other involved parties to move the process forward. At this time, I'm available to answer any questions you may have. We also have Brian Lundberg from Stifel, the district's investment banker, in the audience as well to help answer any potential questions.
Mr. Mikes, did you have any questions?
I don't have any questions.
Mr. Owens?
None for me.
Ms. Wallace?
No questions.
Ms. Moran?
I don't have any questions, but Michael, I thought you were going to read all this to us.
I'll
I-
say plenty to you tonight, but I figured I'd save us some time.
I did review and everything looks to be in order, so I appreciate all the hard work that you've put into this.
I was going to say she was kidding, and we're going to save all of that energy for your next presentation. I don't have any questions either. I'm excited to see us move forward and be able to start building our new school. And so whatever we need to do to get the funds for that seems good to me. If someone would like to make a motion.
I move to approve the adoption resolution providing for all matters relating to the sale and issuance of school improvement bonds of the district, including delegation to the superintendent and chief financial officer of the district to determine certain matters related thereto as presented.
I'll second.
Having a motion from Ms. Moran and a second from Mr. Owens, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also yay. Motion passes. Okay, we are going to move on now to our discussion section, and this will be a fiscal year 2025-2026 budget discussion. This will also be led by our CFO. Because it's the time of year where it's the Michael Vaughn show all the time.
It's the Michael Vaughn and Sandy Satterfield show, but don't discount Sandy. All right. Madam President, members of the governing board, Superintendent Davidson, colleagues and community, thank you for joining us tonight to discuss items we've been exploring related to the budget for the 2025-2026 school year. Tonight's presentation aligns with the district's strategic keystones of readiness, relationship, and resources, all of them. During tonight's presentation, Executive Director Satterfield and I will walk you through the district's budget work to date for fiscal year 2025-2026. We will cover the results of the annual compensation study and provide an update on our benefits. We will also introduce the work we are doing around performance pay and evaluation, provide a strategy exploring retention of experienced employees, and share some additional needs that were identified through the budget process. Each year, we follow a budget process that begins by providing the governing board, district administration, and other stakeholders context on the district's budget position. Through this process, we examine where we ended the prior year in terms of balancing revenue and expenditure, where we anticipate to end the current year, and how that plays out over a multi-year time period. We also examine the district's reserves to target at the end of the prior year and how they may behave over a multi-year time frame. This financial context allows the district to proceed with the budgeting process, knowing if we need to be focused on the most strategic areas to add support due to available resources, or if we need to be focused on maintaining or improving the district's financial position. We then engage stakeholders in an exploratory process to identify possibilities for the next year. This may look like surveys to staff, presentations, and feedback from administrators, employee chats with school sites, or one-on-one meetings with administrators to help identify needs. The finance and human resources teams work to bring to life these ideas, and present them to the administrative cabinet for prioritization and to ensure alignment across the organization. In November, when we examined our financial position together, we saw that the district has a very healthy emergency fund, or reserves. We anticipate utilizing 1 to 2 million of these reserves this year for continued operations. However, our reserves will remain in line with recommendations from the Governmental Finance Officers Association, which are incorporated into the district's governing board policy, which will be effective on July 1st. Coming into this year, significant staffing model changes have been made to implement a multi-year strategy to balance the budget after the expiration of pandemic-related federal grants, which increases the uncertainty in the forecasts. Based on this financial context, you will see an effort throughout this budget to identify and utilize available non-M&O funding sources, as well as offsetting savings where possible. Our hope with this budget is to address strategic needs and provide stability to continue the ongoing budget balancing work into school year 2026-2027. Administration is comfortable with this approach given the financial context of the district and the district's healthy reserve position. This slide details the location of the district's reserves at the end of last fiscal year. At that point in time, the district had slightly over 4 months of reserves, providing stability for our district. I will now hand it over to Executive Director Satterfield to discuss the compensation study that was conducted this year.
Each year, as a result of the independent compensation study, we review the majority of positions held in common with our sister districts. Upon receipt of the results, we calculate the current average of those districts' entry-level pay and compare that to our entry-level pay to determine which positions require a more in-depth review. In this process, we determine an increase to our salary schedule to bring it to that average. We then look at each individual employee in positions that relate to these salary schedules and replace the employee as if they were newly coming to the district. This placement is compared to the results of the standard raise that we are recommending for all employees in any given year, and then we honor the employee by giving them the most advantageous result. In this way, we also are ensuring that our employees do not fall below where new employees would be placed with their education and years of experience. Our comparative analysis encompasses 11 surrounding districts as noted on this slide. And these are consistently the ones we've been using when we get the outside analysis. What we found in our review of the independent analysis was that all of our employee groups remain highly competitive with a few exceptions. As shared on our slide, our teachers on average remain $4,300 above our comparative districts. As you may have noted in recent years, our performance pay comprises a greater percentage of our compensation than the majority of our surrounding districts. These monies are typically provided in June following the completion of the school year and the evaluative process. At our school visits, we heard about the desire for more money in the biweekly paycheck, which will be a focus of further study as an alternative to support our staff. This year, we identified 35 positions that may need additional compensation and are completing those in-depth reviews to ensure we provide the best level of pay to our employees. Additionally, we are proposing a 2% increase for all employee categories. At our next governing board meeting, and after completing the review of each individual employee in the impacted groups, we will share the anticipated cost to fund our recommendations. This year, we are also doing considerable work on our compensation package, including the request for proposal for health and ancillary benefits. The impact of required benefit contributions such as Social Security, Medicare, Arizona State Retirement, long-term disability, workers' compensation benefits, and associated costs are significant, approximately 20% for each employee. In addition, we also provide medical, dental, vision, and life insurance for those employees eligible. With your support, we have conducted the request for proposal process to do our best to provide the best insurance products for the best cost to our employees. On this slide, we have shared those vendors that responded to our request for proposal. As you will note, and we were pleased to see, our incumbents responded to our request. This is good news for our employees as we pursue the best product in a fiscally responsible manner. This slide shares the work completed by the insurance committee in analyzing and scoring the submissions. Each member of the committee participated in a meeting where the details of each vendor's offer was provided. A scoring rubric was provided to each committee member, and the committee was given approximately 1 week to submit their individual assessments to our Director of Purchasing for compilation. As a result of this work, the information provided on this slide indicates the highest scoring vendors, along with incumbents, who have been invited to participate in the best and final process. The best and final process opportunity allows these vendors to respond to additional questions that are relevant to a final decision, along with the opportunity to modify their offering and their pricing. After finalists have been determined, the committee met again to review the best and final data and have been provided another scoring opportunity to assist us in making a final decision to bring forward for your consideration. We do want to share that the ASBATE renewal rates are expected around March 1st, the typical time of rate releases each year. The comparative analysis will be finalized following this release of information. Once completed, we will bring this information for your review and consideration for approval. We would be remiss if we did not share that the committee that has been completing this critical work on behalf of the district is made up of 2 certified employees, 2 classified employees, 2 administrative employees, as well as representatives from finance and human resources. A big thank you to each person for their time. It's a lot of work to take it in and evaluate it. At this time, we would like to pause for any discussion or questions you may have based on what we have shared thus far.
Mr. Mikes, did you have any questions or comments so far?
No, I don't have any questions, comments as far as, we appreciate the committee's time putting into all this stuff. I can only imagine the amount of information that comes across in order to compare all these plans and put the best foot forward for it. So I appreciate that.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah, definitely thank you for all your work. As far as it comes to, I know we do this. How often do we do the benefits competition? That's more recent because of changes we've made, or no?
That's only more recent because we're trying to be strategic with our resources and compensation strategy. The last time we, as a district, looked at least the medical component of our benefits package was actually in the 80s. Litchfield Elementary School District was a founding member of the ASBATE Trust and has been with ASBATE that entire time. What we're likely to see into the future is we try to be more strategic with how our compensation structure is structured and to make sure that we're continuously getting the best offerings we can is probably more like a 3 to 5 year cycle. And really the RFP process doesn't mean that there's going to be a change. It simply means you're going to the market to make certain that you're getting updated pricing. And so the process might find that ASBATE's pricing is the most competitive that's being offered to us, or it could find that another provider is willing to provide us better benefit offerings for a lesser price. And so simply by being willing to do that process on a more cyclical basis, you can have some assurance that you really are getting the best that you can offered to your employees.
Great, thank you. Yeah. So, I mean, my point being is, I kind of knew the answer to that, but my point being is that one of the things when I became a board member, and a lot of times when I ask questions, you know, you don't want to get a response of just because we've always done it that way, right? That shouldn't be an answer. If it is the answer, it's because we've exhausted all other resources, possibilities, ventures, and that's the only option. So I'm excited and I'm happy that we're doing this, because when we find other opportunities to, you know, reduce costs to our teachers, that's more money for them. That's more money for us. So I appreciate your work there. I appreciate the, you know, one of the biggest things feedback I get from teachers is they feel like they're not getting paid as much as a brand new teacher. And so making sure that that's, you know, that's not a concern of theirs is appreciated as well. When it comes to the 2% raise, how often or how many years in a row have we done that?
We've done it each year I've been here, which I'm finishing up my third year now. What Litchfield did prior to me is a little bit more fuzzy, but that also, when you get too much prior to my time with the district, you also start getting much closer to the 20% by 2020 time frame, where significant amounts of additional resources were pushed into districts to support increased raises. The origin really of the 2% really ties to the 2% inflation funding that districts tend to see from the state each year. In Litchfield, our enrollment isn't actually growing when you look at us as a district in its entirety. And so we simply don't have additional resources really beyond that 2% inflation adjustment that we get from the state each year.
Thank you again. And my point being that, you know, we all understand inflation is much higher than 2%, especially last year. That we as a district are able to find 2% to raise pay for our teachers when, as you just mentioned, you know, we don't necessarily have the student population to fund that. I hope our teachers appreciate that. I'm glad that we can do that. I don't know if that's standard for most school districts. I haven't had a 2% raise every year in the last 3 years. So I'm just glad that we can do that.
Ms. Wallace?
I don't have any questions. I appreciate going and finding the information for health benefits. I'm sure that this team is looking into it, but obviously the cost that they are paying for their families on top of what is covered for the individual is highly important. Because if the cost for one company versus another is significant to add families or children, dependents, that's going to very much offset how much they take home each month as far as percentage. So I'm sure that that group is doing that, but that's definitely something very important to look at, because as insurance continues to rise for what they're paying for their families, 2% is probably not even covering the difference for the raise in insurance. So I appreciate that we're trying to at least make it even and finding the best insurance to make that raise cover those differences.
Ms. Moran?
I'm going to start with the context. Slide 6. So I appreciate you including this, because if you read really between the lines here, what you're saying and what I would like to make sure is clear to my fellow board members as well as staff is that this year, we do anticipate we will dip into our reserves. We have a limited amount of reserves. And to Board Member Owen's point, the 2% raise that we anticipate giving merely matches up with the 2% inflationary increase we anticipate the state will be giving us. So if we're taking in the 2%, giving that to teachers, as we should, if we're going to match up our budget next year with this year, we're going to dip further into our reserves. Now, as has been discussed in numerous years, sometimes things happen and we don't end up dipping into the reserves as we expected. But all that to say, the current year's budget is technically unbalanced because we're dipping into our reserves, and we know we can't continue doing that. So one of the things that, as everyone has said, I appreciate you looking into, is a way to cut costs, and the benefits being one of those costs. Some things we have no control over, like Social Security and that sort of thing, what we have to pay into the retirement system. But we do have some control and choice over those, the vision plan, the dental plan, those types of things. So hopefully we can shave a little bit off there, which could free up funds for us to give teachers additional, or if the state and the legislators decide they want to be generous, that would be awesome. And we could maybe give more than 2%, because I agree that the actual inflation does not, nor has it matched up with what our state has decided to give us to increase teacher pay, maybe ever. So feel free to reach out to the state legislators and let them know your thoughts on that. The other comment that I would like to make is on slide 10. So when I look at slide 10 and I see the employee compensation and it says the words, teacher total compensation on average is $4,300 above neighboring districts, I say, that's amazing. So what are we doing to make sure that our employees know that? Because it's easy to look at other districts' average salary and maybe not interpret that correctly in a comparison to what our total compensation is. So what are we doing to help make sure that our own employees know that, hey, if you shop around these neighboring districts, you should be compensated more than you would be compensated there, again, for retention type strategy.
So I think potentially we'll end up with a unique opportunity this year, because as we get deeper into the slides, we'll start covering some other ideas that we have that potentially will have bigger changes to what our compensation structure really looks like. So once we actually have board approval and we're not just having discussions about it, I think there will need to be some significant conversation around compensation in Litchfield, because potentially it'll look a little bit different than it has in years past. So I think that that's a great opportunity that we'll have to make certain that we capitalize on this year.
Okay, and then will we include in that, and maybe we've done this before, do we normally kind of advertise or, toot our own horn about what we do cover for medical versus what other districts cover for medical, or is that included in this $4,300 amount?
So the $4,300 amount is a starting salary comparison, and it doesn't include benefits costs. Not all compensation studies actually look at benefits. The compensation study we did this year does not. The one we did last year was through a different provider, and does look at benefits. It's more holistic, but the reason we choose not to use that provider every year is that provider requires our sister districts to actually do quite a bit of work in responding, and to ensure that we maintain a collaborative relationship with our sister districts, I don't think I can ask them to do it every year and actually get responses. So our approach with the compensation study has been cyclical, and similar to what I was saying with the benefits RFP, in that we will do the more in-depth compensation study every couple years to make certain that it still remains valuable. But our current compensation study that was done this year doesn't include benefits.
Okay. I know that that is another differentiating factor that can easily fall between the cracks, that employees might not realize how much we contribute to their medical specifically, versus what other districts may or may not be doing.
Each year, and this is actually, I'm going to call it a new statute, but it's a new statute within the last couple of years. There's a requirement for school districts to provide what are called compensation statements. And those are on an individual basis and show an employee not only what we paid them in a wage, but also all of what we contributed to ASRS and medical. It really truly is a total compensation statement. It's well named. And so we probably have some opportunity there to really highlight what they are getting paid. Now they're not comparative in the sense of it doesn't have other districts' data on it, but it certainly provides a great deal of insight into what that individual employee's total compensation package is. We probably have some opportunity to make that communication a little bit more strategically used, but that's another option that as we're discussing, I can see another opportunity there.
Okay. When do those come out?
I believe we've put them out around January, but the statute doesn't actually require a particular time frame. So let me get back to you on that timeline and provide you a Friday update on that.
Okay. It would make sense if it comes out around W-2 time, but that might not have anything to
It's
do with
either
it.
that or after the fiscal year end.
Okay.
I'm not certain which, but let me get back to you on that.
Okay, no problem. Thank you. The only other thing I wanted to comment on was the in-depth benefits analysis that you're doing with your committee, and how I'm really glad that we're doing that, because obviously it's been a long time coming. As you mentioned, we may end up going with ASBATE still, but the fact that we've looked at it and at least tried to do some price comparison shows the prudence and due diligence behind that, so I appreciate that.
So I have a question about the health insurance stuff. If teacher contracts are coming out after March 15th, that's the plan, right? The idea originally was that we would have all these numbers in for their contracts when they go out. But if you guys get that on March 1st and we're meeting like March 3rd or 4th, whatever date it is, how do you do that?
I do appreciate you realizing the Hail Mary that we may have in the timeline. Really, the ASBATE renewal is the final piece to the puzzle. So the current plan is to have it figured out with the exception of the ASBATE renewal. See if the ASBATE renewal changes the answer, if you will, and be ready to go. I may or may not have to ask for some grace around the 48-hour publishing time frame, depending on when exactly we get that information. But our hope is the next governing board meeting, we can provide some more insight into what the plans look like and the cost. We do know, because it was provided to us, an upper range on what ASBATE's renewal could be. And so the committee has been operating under the assumption that they come back at that highest cost. So we know that ASBATE won't be worse than what we're currently anticipating, but it is possible that they might sharpen their pencil, knowing that they're in this process and there are other finalists for the services that they provide. I guess in a long-winded way, I'm saying we're going to do our very best. I anticipate being able to have it for approval on that 4th, but it is a question mark.
Okay. I, for one, would be okay if we needed to give you a little grace as long as it meets our 24-hour, like legally law says so. Mr. Owens, go ahead.
Sorry, can I just follow up to that last point you made? So, are you saying that ASBATE could go lower than they would otherwise present to us?
What I'm saying
That
is
way that
last year they gave us a number and they said, next year your renewal will not be worse than this figure. What I'm saying is the committee has been assuming that ASBATE's renewal will be that figure. But they're not contractually obligated to renew us at that figure. They could choose to renew us at a lower percentage increase than what they told us the maximum possibility was.
No, I understand. I'm sorry. I guess I wasn't clear. So what I'm saying is there could be a possibility where they would quote us or give us a whatever, but they could have gone lower. Or do they always have to give us the best option every time, the lowest they can go?
So ASBATE is a pooled insurance product, and so they look at the performance of the entire insurance pool when they're deciding the rate increase. They typically provide a range of increases to the different districts in the insurance pool. When you look at the history of the renewals Litchfield has gotten compared to the pool as a whole, our renewals actually have tended to be a little bit better than the pool as a whole, but they are essentially an insurance company, and we don't have a great deal of insight into their underwriting process. And so that's the other benefit to doing this RFP process on a cyclical basis, because we still don't have insight into the full process, but it allows us to get quotes from others to compare if the end result is the most advantageous. But maybe I'm not understanding your question. I'm sorry, Mr. Owen.
No. You are, but so ASBATE, right, is associated and tied with ASBA, right? They are the branch of the Arizona School Board Association. Their insurance fees and stuff that they collect from us also funds ASBA, right?
My understanding is ASBA charges a licensing fee almost to be associated with their name to ASBATE, and so ASBATE does pay a portion of their proceeds to
But
ASBA.
it's almost it's a monopoly. ASBATE is a monopoly through ASBA, unless you go outside of ASBA.
Sure, yep. ASBATE is the only insurance trust that's directly tied with ASBA. You don't have to be with ASBATE if you're an ASBA member.
Correct, yeah.
But you do have to be an ASBA member if you would like to maintain ASBATE benefits.
I guess, I mean, I understand they're an insurance company, right? But being funneled through ASBA, which is a public association of school boards or whatever, however, that they wouldn't always give us as low as they possibly can go, right? I find that if I'm correct in saying that they could come to us and say, here's a range that you fall in, and we could say no, and then maybe they could come back and, oh, well, since you said no, we can go a little lower. They could do that.
They can, and in fact,
That's where I don't.
can't
That's
remember.
where I have an issue. That's
Yeah.
my issue. That's what I'm getting at.
I
right?
can't remember if it was last year or the year prior, but we actually have successfully negotiated a slightly lower renewal rate than their initial offer. So I can confirm that yes, they can.
So that's my hang up. I mean, and if they're the lowest, then yeah, we're gonna use them.
Right.
But I just find it concerning, in my opinion, that they are tied to ASBA, and while yes, whatever they have to make a profit, they are still have the opportunity to not give us the best rate that they can to still be profitable to some extent. But this is taxpayer dollars we're using, and
I do want to say that I don't think that while I agree with what you're saying, I don't think it's unique to ASBATE. I think any insurance provider could enter into negotiations, provide an initial renewal proposal, and then in the negotiation process, potentially offer a better renewal.
No, I
offer.
agree. I agree. They're,
Yeah.
I mean, they're all insurance companies, but just
Right.
because it is the ASBA one, right? Like, there's no other option. You're an ASBA, you have, yeah, you're like ASBA, you have, if you want it. So, okay, I'm done.
Sorry, Ryan.
Did anyone else have any further questions, comments?
Yeah, I guess I'm not understanding the issue with using as bait.
I don't have an issue with ASBAIT if it's the lowest priced model and it's going to be the best potential. I'm just saying that I would hope that ASBAIT would give us the best possible rates for our staff so that we can use as little money as we possibly can to get the best coverage possible. And if it's competitive and it's the best, then great. But if they could do better, then why don't they do that from the beginning? Because of their elite affiliation with ASBA and not just because they're a private group that we go out to request information from. I have no problem if ASBAIT's the best.
Anybody else have any other questions or comments? Okay, we can move on to the next section.
At this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Mr. Vaughn. He's going to begin and lead our discussion of performance pay and the work that is taking place surrounding this significant component of employee compensation.
As part of our strategic goal to redesign the evaluation instrument and performance pay compensation structures, our team has reviewed academic research as it relates to performance pay in our industry. In many cases, the results of the research are mixed. There is some evidence that awarding performance pay does not provide the retention that was an intended outcome of the program. Instead, performance pay serves as a way to encourage underperforming employees to leave the organization. I'm going to wait for the slide, sorry. It's the same slide there. Yeah, we have multiple question slides in there. In reflection, we have developed 3 goals for the performance pay structure in Litchfield. First, we would like the performance pay structure to complement a cascading evaluation system that drives alignment of goals from the superintendent to all employees. Second, we would like to allow our evaluation system to drive our work in employee growth and development without risk to the employee. We've seen that when there is deep connection between compensation and evaluation, evaluators and employees are more hesitant to have necessary, difficult conversations during the evaluative process with the potential to have a positive impact on student and employee growth. Third, we want to ensure our performance compensation structure supports the district's goal of having a competitive compensation structure for our current and prospective employees. We will continue to work with the Career Development Committee and will bring an update to you at our next governing board meeting with some more details. At this time, Executive Director Satterfield and I are available to answer any questions you may have on our work on performance pay.
Mr. Mikes?
No questions. I mean, comments in regards to the goals you guys have listed seem to make sense to me of which way you're going with that, especially being part of many conversations about growth and evaluations and that link for compensation. So I think the pathway you guys are going with that makes sense to me.
Mr. Owens?
Yes, I agree. Thanks.
Ms. Wallace?
Just to clarify, this is potentially going to take effect not in the next calendar year, but the following. Is that correct? And what we're working towards?
So what we would be talking about with governing board approval is a change starting July 1st of 2025 going through June 30th, 2026.
Okay, so the teachers would be looking at this change for next school year.
Yes.
Okay.
Miss Wallace, if I can add, please. Part of my goal, if you recall, was to work through the evaluation system, the tool, as well as performance pay. So what you saw on that last slide is kind of the interconnectedness that we have. The work beside the evaluation tool was for us to start at the administrative level, begin that process as we develop that cascading system. But I think Sandy and Michael and their team are looking at the performance pay piece, which I know they'll share more in the near future. So interconnectedness, the hope would be, of course, that the performance pay model could be for next year. The evaluation tools and system itself will be likely a 2-year process based upon the work we're doing.
Understood. Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
Oh, performance pay. Okay, so my feedback on this would be, first of all, I would love to stop calling it performance pay if it is not pay for performance. Because that's really what we're saying in slide 18 is, if a goal is to have an evaluation system that drives employee growth and development without concern for total compensation, that means we don't want to tie any compensation to evaluation. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
It's not that we don't want to tie compensation to performance, but we are talking about separating qualitative evaluation metrics from performance, if that makes sense. So having the performance measures where you do have performance compensation be items that can't be easily manipulated in a positive or negative way by the evaluator, but more driven by the pure numbers of performance. Because what we've found is that when it is the more qualitative aspects of evaluation, evaluators are less willing to have those difficult conversations. And we really see value in allowing the evaluation tool to be the driver of that growth. And so we're exploring the concept of removing that barrier to those difficult conversations so that if there is growth that needs to happen from a qualitative perspective, they're not also worried about underpaying the employee and having them leave the organization because they could go elsewhere and make more money, even though all we're really trying to do is grow our employees to be the best Litchfield we can be.
Okay, so would you anticipate then that the performance pay, what we currently call performance pay, would be incorporated into regular pay?
Potentially. That's one of the things we'll be exploring with the committee and during that committee work. Because if we shift a dollar amount of money, whatever that dollar amount is, from performance pay to base level compensation, we then potentially have the opportunity to allow employees to make an election of if they'd like to continue receiving that money at the end of the year, or if they'd like to see it in their biweekly paychecks. It's a mechanism to allow us to respond to the feedback that we've gotten that in a lot of instances when we're recruiting new educators, they're used to a system with substantially more in the biweekly paycheck and substantially less in June, but also respond to the feedback of our existing team members who have shared with us that they like it in June. And so shifting some amount of that compensation from the performance pay, which you can really only pay in June because you have to know what the performance was, to base pay so that we can provide that election is part of what we're hoping to explore with that committee.
Okay, so that would be similar to an option now of teachers who get paid equally throughout the year versus through the school year.
Absolutely.
Okay, so same amount of money, just different way of paying it out. That sounds very reasonable to me. I guess what my request would be, because I mean, the history behind this money is career ladder and systems that have long been eliminated by the different buckets that our state still likes to put all this money into. So I would like for us to be more comparable, again, with other districts so that it is clear when people want to come to us or when they're looking to leave from us exactly apples to apples comparisons. But I also would like to leave whatever we're going to leave in this performance pay, if we're leaving money in there, that we actually are tying it to performance. And I understand what you're saying about the maybe more qualitative or subjective aspects of our evaluation, and hopefully working through that's going to fix some of those things that are in there now. So I look forward to seeing what that looks like, because I think for our folks, especially the ones that have been around a long time, it's going to look really different. And so we're going to have some big hurdles to explain that, but hopefully it will end up with a system that is better for our teachers as well as for our students and the performance overall. Like you said, remove some of those barriers to growth and constructive criticism without making it feel like a penalty and a punishment.
That's exactly our goal. Thank you for articulating it better than I was.
I don't have any questions. I'm glad to see that we are having these conversations and looking at doing this. I know we kind of have tried to do this in the past and it didn't work out, but we do know we're getting very mixed opinions, right? New people want it one way, people that are here want it another way. And how do we accommodate both? So I appreciate that you guys are trying to figure that out. I do like the idea that we potentially are going to move some of that performance pay into their regular pay so that they can see it in their paychecks and understand that they are actually making more money here than other places. So that's all the feedback I have this time.
All right. Next, we would like to share with you some trends both in the education workforce as well as the workforce more broadly that we need to be in a position to address. As we work to keep our schools staffed, we know that there is a significant teacher shortage. This is being driven both by the generation who is nearing the end of their careers, being large in comparison to the generation entering the workforce, as well as some concerns specific to our industry. Specifically, according to the National Bureau of Economic Research, we are in a period of historic lows of new educators becoming licensed. However, the workforce is not shrinking as much as these demographic trends would have us expect. This is because employees are choosing to work later in life than they have in the past. The percentage of the workforce that is older than 65 has grown 117% over the last 20 years. In response to these global trends, we would like to present you with a multi-pronged strategy to retain experienced employees and educators in Litchfield. This strategy has three components, including addressing compression, longevity, and a robust return to work program. As Executive Director Satterfield and I visited schools this year, we heard concerns of compression from our longtime employees. As a first step of a multi-year process, we conducted an analysis of employees on the teacher pay scale and calendar. This analysis identified a population of 61 employees who are being compensated below where a new employee with similar experience and education would be placed on the placement chart. To honor these employees, we recommend bringing these employees up to the placement chart at a cost of $91,000. We believe this is a first step to this work and intend to do this same analysis for all employee groups for consideration during the 2026-2027 and future budget cycles. This slide begins our look at longevity. The Teacher Experience Index is the result of the school district employee report that school districts must complete each year and submit to the state. During this reporting process, districts share the years of experience for each teacher employed in the district as of October 1st. We use this data to determine the number of years at which the district begins to experience an increase in the number of teachers leaving the district and possibly the profession for other opportunities. On this slide, a negative number indicates more teachers left with the stated number of years of experience, while a positive number indicates the district hired more educators at that level of experience. Reviewing this data, at year 10, we see that the district begins to experience a more significant and consistent turnover of teachers. To help address this concern, the administration would like to recommend a longevity stipend starting at 10 years of experience with Litchfield. The stipend would provide $1,000 for employees with 10 through 19 years of completed service to the district and $2,500 for those with 20 or more years of service to the district. Please note that we are specifically looking at years of service to Litchfield when making this recommendation. This longevity program would be funded from the Classroom Site Fund for eligible employees and other funding sources for employees not eligible to receive compensation from the Classroom Site Fund, such as non-classroom support personnel. The administration is recommending cutting funding for the Employee Appreciation Benefit to help support more meaningful recognition of employees in the form of pay increases that will positively impact them for the rest of their lives. Next, I will discuss our proposal for the Return to Work program. Participation in the Arizona State Retirement System is mandatory for an employee who works 20 or more hours per week. The contribution rate for the employee and the employer is currently over 12% of the employee's wages. There is more than one way for an employee to retire from ASRS, but the most common is to reach 80 points, determined by adding the employee's age and years of service in the retirement system together. To capitalize on the 80-point option, an individual must have commenced employment prior to 2011. After 2011, the rules changed a little bit. But for the purpose of our conversation tonight, obviously if you started after 2011, you wouldn't be so near retirement that this would be as relevant presently. Utilizing this option would allow an employee to retire at age 50 if they had 30 years of service. Upon retirement from ASRS, individuals must not work for a contributing employer for the first full year immediately following retirement. Many school district employees who are able to retire may still desire to continue contributing to education. Therefore, many districts have a rehire work opportunity for these individuals. To support employees who would like to begin collecting their pensions, many districts have collaborated with a contracted agency to retain the employee as a contracted worker. Doing so allows the retiree to begin to draw their retirement benefits through ASRS while possibly continuing in their same position with the school district from which they retired. The district facilitates this with the contracted agency, typically by paying a percentage of the employee's wages. After the completion of the first year of retirement, districts can welcome the employee back as an employee directly with the district without the contract agency in between, continuing to fill the position needed for our students and capitalizing on that employee's experience and expertise while still allowing the employee to continue to draw their retirement and pay from the district. It ends up being a significant positive for both parties. As stated in an earlier slide, the workforce over age 65 has grown exponentially, and this is a way to support that trend in Litchfield, and even a little bit younger, as I stated in the example. As previously stated, the pension payout rules vary depending on when an employee began contributing to ASRS. An individual's retirement compensation is calculated using years of experience as well as the highest average compensation that the employee received while actively working. As noted on our slide, for those with 30 years of experience, the payout is 69% of the highest annual compensation, which can be life-changing for an individual. The next several slides will walk us through an example of a present longtime teacher of Litchfield. This slide will show us the difference that the addition of a longevity stipend would provide an employee at the time of retirement. The first column reflects the total compensation the employee would receive in the last year of active employment without the longevity stipend that we just discussed, and compared to the second column, which includes the longevity stipend. As you can see, for this employee and an employee that has 30 years of experience in the system, that stipend would increase their lifetime benefit of by $1,725 per year. This slide allows us to view the earnings from the last year of active employment with the district, the year of service under the contract worker arrangement, and then the first year back as an employee directly with LESD. You'll note that we're utilizing 90% of the last active year's salary for the contracted year and 100% of the last active year's salary upon return to employment directly with the district. These percentages are aligned with other districts, or in certain cases are more advantageous to Litchfield's employees compared to similar programs offered in other districts. You'll note that our calculations reflect the addition of the $2,500 longevity stipend that we're proposing for your consideration. During the year with the contracted agency, you'll note a significant increase to the retiree's income based on compensation at 90% of the last year's salary, coupled with their annual retirement benefit, almost $51,000 of an annual increase in this example. Upon return to active employment with the district, the employee would receive 100% of their annual salary at the time of retirement, as well as their annual retirement benefit. This, once again, increases the retiree's annual income by an additional $8,700. Our hope is that several years of dramatically increased earnings before it stabilizes once again at that higher rate helps the continuing employee feel appreciated and valued for their experience and longevity in our district. Next, we wanted to share what this looks like for the district as the employer. As you can see, during the year prior to retirement, the total cost to the district for this employee would be just shy of $116,000. During the year with the contract agency, the cost to the district is $102,000, approximately $14,000 of savings. This savings comes both from compensating the employee at 90% of their previous rate and the fee the contract agency charges being less than the cost of benefits previously provided to the employee. Upon this retiree's return to Litchfield as an active employee, the employee's income would be $149,000, while the cost to the district would still be $5,000 less than their final year before retirement. This reflects the payment of by the district of the alternative contribution rate, as opposed to the usual percentage that the employer must match for the employee to the retirement system during active employment. When considering retention, this is an avenue that we anticipate our employees nearing retirement would value, as we consider the data mentioned related to the increase in percentage of workers over age 65. Mrs. Satterfield and I are available to answer any questions you may have on longevity and retention strategies.
Mr. Mikes?
Yeah, I'm trying to go back to the slide now. The two main questions I really had is the number as far as when we decided, the number of 1,000 or 2,000, where did that number kind of generate from? I know it's just not something picked out of the air. I'm just curious on that.
You already know me well. Thank you.
And then also, the attachment to that is, where did the concept of going, oh, we're going to pluck it at 10 years, and then, oh, 20 years, uh, we're going to implement it there. Where did that, was it from the research you guys found? So just if you could elaborate on that, that would be great.
Yeah, I might answer your questions in reverse order if that's okay.
No.
Okay. Well, then I'll do my best to answer them in the order in which you asked. If we go back to this slide, this was the data that Sandy and I used really to try to land on what year to begin. When you see some negatives prior to year 10, you see a jump in how large the numbers are at that 9 to 10 range. And then the other thing I noted was that you see a consistent negative across the years. Whereas in the earlier years, sometimes it was positive, sometimes it was negative, and so it wasn't as consistent. And so really at 10 years, we thought we saw a consistent loss of experienced teachers, and we wanted to see if we could help address that. Bumping it up at 20 years really goes to a different potential retention problem, and that is there's significant incentive for employees in the Arizona State retirement system to leave as they get closer and closer to retirement, because your pension payout for the rest of your life is determined by your highest years of compensation within a window of your retirement date. And so the hope is that by bumping it up a little bit more as they truly enter that retirement period, is that they don't feel as strong a need to leave us to bump up that highest earning years, and that we're effectively doing it for them so they don't have to leave us to get that same result. As far as how we landed on the numbers, part of it comes back to the size of our workforce and our available resources. As the team and I were looking at this concept, because it was a concept before I quite knew how to pay for it, we then began looking at funding sources that this might be eligible for. And Classroom Site Fund, at least for a decent portion of our employee group, that would be an eligible funding source from it. And so what I did is I looked at the level of reserves we have in the Classroom Site Fund and the level of reserves that we might like to have in the Classroom Site Fund. And we have excess reserves there. And so really what I did is look at how much we have in excess reserves. I took a little trick from the state budgeting office and divided that number by 3 to see what it might be if we wanted this to be a more long-running program, and then targeted that dollar amount with this program, and just did math to figure out how much we could support paying with that dollar amount. If we do decide to move forward with this and we do see that it is beneficial, what the long-term strategy would be to make this sustainable long-term is that increases that we get to the Classroom Site Fund program would start going to backfill and providing a long-term funding source, so that by the time the excess reserves are spent down, that we have a ongoing funding stream to make this sustainable. That was a really long-winded answer, but do you have a follow-up?
No,
Okay.
that was great. I appreciate that.
Okay.
To kind of peel back the onion on where that stuff came from. Thank you.
Mr. Owens?
A lot of numbers. So it says, looking at the next slide, right, we have 38, or is it 36 employees that are 20 plus years of service. Do we know how many teachers right now would be eligible for this?
So these are our these are our current numbers.
No, they're not. You're not old enough. None of you are old enough. None of you are old enough for this.
Apparently, we have fans in the audience of this idea. I don't
Okay, so a few,
Yeah.
and then more and more every year. Okay, this is my question.
Ms. Wallace?
I don't have any questions, but I really love moving the 61 employees to where they would compare as a new employee. I know this is a terrible comparison, but I hate that I pay more for my internet than people signing up for a new program. And it's the same with our teachers. Like, we should value them above our brand new staff. And so I think that is a wonderful place to start. And I love that we're doing that. I also absolutely love the work that you've put into this in trying to figure out where to get this funds from, how to sustain it, and how to tell our staff, whether it's 10 years or 20 years, that we care about you and we want this to be the place that you want to be. And for the teachers listening or here, you owe him a lot of thanks for all of the work that he is going above and beyond to try to make sure that we can pay the teachers the most that we can, and that we do value that. So thank you so much for all of your work in this. I know that it's a big task.
Ms. Maria?
I also am in favor of the compression adjustments that need to be made. I think that only makes sense to make sure that the compression catching up other people doesn't then again penalize the people who have stayed with us the longest. I'm really interested to see the impact of this longevity stipend, if we can get it in place as it is, because I think another hurdle we're going to face there is just folks understanding how valuable that is. I love the example of when you're saying it's going to impact their lifetime annuity, basically from their pension. A lot of people have no idea how that works. So I think that's really valuable, as well as the, come back to work scenario. And not only the fact that that is a huge, as you say, life-changing potential amount of income if they decide to come back after they've retired. But in addition, it's a win-win for us because it's less outlay for an even more qualified employee. Our expenses go down. So as much as we can do with this, I'm on board. Let's see how many teachers we can not only retain, because the other win with that is we know that the teachers we've had for a long time are doing good work with our students, and we want to keep them as long as we can, because that's in the best interest of student success as well. So I just see wins across the board with this particular program, and I don't know if other districts are doing this to the extent that we are now, and if we need to wait a couple of years, see what that data looks like, reanalyze the stipend piece to see if we need to adjust that potentially once we get the funding more stabilized. I think we should have an opportunity to do that as well. So I look forward to seeing what this is going to do for us.
I don't have any questions either. I appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. I appreciate us thinking of new and creative ways to make sure we're getting our teachers paid every dime that we can. And I know that I feel like it's our long-term staff have kind of not really gotten the attention they deserve. And that's really unfortunate, because they are what makes the culture of Litchfield what it is, by the people that have been here and given us so many years of their life and poured into our students. So I am very thankful that we are looking at taking care of them right now. This is a great, great plan. I'm excited to see how this works out as we move forward.
Ms. Idler? Oh, can I add to that, please, real quick? And it sounds like, Ms. Moran, you might have been in the conversations that we are having. Certainly, our goal as we consider these initiatives over the next few years to continue to look at the data and see how it changes, hopefully over time. The thing that I just want to add for all those listening, and as we represent our different team members out there, these recommendations are going to be for every employee group. I was listening to the board, and certainly teachers are at top of mind. We know what the data says regarding getting a qualified, skilled educator in our classrooms. Super, super important.
But I've learned we haven't always done a good job of highlighting this return to work program with our administrators and our classified staff, because to your point, there is an opportunity to really make some headway in maybe those financial goals you might have as you age like I'm aging, right? So just super excited to be able to let every employee know that these things will be coming their way with the board's approval in the near future. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, go ahead. Yes.
I wanted to just add one thing about this program and the way we're approaching it. In HR, our intent is to invite people in as they begin to approach retirement. So towards that goal, we're having a meeting coming up, and I apologize, I don't know the exact date, but where we're going to bring in the contracting agency we use. We're also going to have the Arizona State Retirement System there, and our team will be there to help people understand what we're currently doing. And then if we are able to move forward with our plan, when we invite people in one-on-one to discuss retirement, we'll do our best to educate them fully about this so they can see the long-term gain that this will have for them. And I just think that part is so important. Over the years, I've had people say, well, this is too good to be true, but it really isn't. It's an opportunity and a great way to support people who've given their life to the kids of this community or other communities. So I just wanted to include that. And then Mr. Vaughn and I were going to transition so that I could talk with you a little bit about some additional positions and some position changes that we'd like to, that we will be proposing based on our budget work. So each year we meet with the district leaders to gain their perspective on needs district-wide for our consideration. Two needs within our transportation department surfaced this year: the need for a district driver trainer and the addition of one CIT child in transit driver. The driver trainer would represent a cost to our M&O budget of $70,000 and aligns with our strategic goal to create and sustain a successful transportation department by decreasing the time between hiring a driver and the actual start time for the driver so that we can get them on the road, getting children transported. The CIT driver position represents no additional cost, actually. We probably would realize a savings from doing that because this is that area where we were paying so much to transport one special needs kiddo or some of our children who are on McKinney-Vento. And so by having the smaller vehicles and us doing the transporting, it saves the district money. So that will be one thing we'll bring forward. In our community education department, excuse me, we realize that there's a need for succession planning. To adequately prepare for the future, a generalist appears to be a logical option. This would not be an expense to our maintenance and operation budget, as the cost would be covered through our community education program budget. So that way we will be preparing for future retirements and so that we have a plan in place so that it's a successful move. In our curriculum department, the need for a programs data analyst to support our ELD program, as well as other programs that are housed under the curriculum umbrella. Creating this position would result in the collapse of the existing position that is entitled Curriculum and Assessment Assistant. The duties previously assigned to that position would be absorbed into the new data analyst role that we're proposing. And this, once again, this would not be a cost to our M&O, but actually would be compensated out of our impact aid monies. The proposed changes on this slide represent an increased cost to M&O of approximately $9,800, while other funds would experience an increase of $157,400 for the succession planning and the ELD analyst, etc. moving on, we'd like to propose or share with you what we'll propose for our position modifications that were brought forward for fiscal year 26. The first recommended change would support at our school sites and impact the attendance clerk positions. Our recommendation is the attendance clerk positions move from the 5.5 hours that they're currently staffed at to a 7-hour per day position. This will allow for more time to be directed toward accuracy, the compliance issues that come along with attendance, and also we saw it as a way to help support the period attendance that we implemented this year. Additionally, this would provide additional support when needed for crossing guard, duty coverage, etc. As we've heard from our leaders this year that has been a little bit harder for them at the campus sites to address the duties or the crossing guard. And so we thought once the obligations were fulfilled for the attendance, that then they could support in that way. Our second recommendation is the modification of our benefits coordinator position to a benefits and wellness manager. This request is a result of our staff survey, which indicated that the incorporation of a wellness program under our benefits umbrella was a top-tier request by our employees and aligns with our pillars, all three of them really, with the readiness, resources, and relationships, by the use of preventative measures to create a safe and positive school and work environment, provide staff and students the necessary resources to do their jobs efficiently and effectively. We know that if the teacher's in the classroom, our children are getting the best, rather than, we value our subs, but the teacher is there and the best. And lastly, to support by attracting and retaining highly skilled employees. The responsibilities currently fulfilled by our benefits coordinator will be absorbed into this recommended position, and the increased cost for this change will represent about $16,000. The remaining modifications that we recommend are an increase to the student transporter bus driver hours from 30 per week to 35 hours per week, and a change to their calendar to actually incorporate their training days into their work calendar. This results in no additional cost to the district, as our transporters are routinely working this number of hours already and are compensated for the training days through a stipend that can be more easily addressed through the work agreement and just having those days on their assigned calendar so they have all the information. At the same time, we would recommend an increase to the hours for the bus monitors to 30 hours per week. This request also has no additional cost, but rather aligns with the average hours that are currently being worked by our monitors. This will allow for better recruiting because we can tell them, here are the number of hours you can expect to work. And also it will allow us to do better budgeting because we'll know we'll be planning for it now. They're working whatever their assigned number of hours are, plus the others. And so if we say you're going to work 35 hours a week, then we can budget accordingly. At this time, Mr. Bond and I are available to answer any questions you may have related to our additional district needs and the position modifications, as well as any of the other items previously discussed.
Mr. Mikes?
This is a new guy question, I guess, but so our attendance clerks are not full-time currently in the office?
We did actually look at, should they be 8 hours? Should they be 7 hours? We knew we needed something more and could meet needs of our schools, but the cost difference between 1 hour was so significant based on the additional holidays and those types of things, plus the wages, that 7 hours seemed to be realistic to accomplish the work and also to provide a little extra support. And did I cover everything, Mr. Vaughn?
We did, this particular recommendation or request came from many different sources, which is one of the reasons why I at least could feel so confident that it was probably one that we really needed to look at. It came from our student information team that's ultimately responsible for our attendance reporting to the state, and very regularly has to be able to speak to our attendance reporting under audit. It also came from our school sites, especially the schools that were implementing period attendance. As we began looking at, do we move this position to 8 hours? Do we move it to 7 hours? There was a decent bit of discussion around what was really needed. Obviously, also aligning with the resource question, and the conversation really came to, we think this work can be done in 7 hours. And it is the more fiscally responsible approach. But similar to all the other things that we look at each year, we will have a similar feedback gathering loop in future budget cycles. And so what I would say is, if we find that the 7 hours isn't enough, it would be something that would come up in our feedback gathering, and we would readdress in future years. 7 hours is more than attendance clerks have ever had in Litchfield, and so I do think it's probably a good step to see if that's sufficient, or if more is required. Previous to this coming year, the attendance clerk position wasn't even a position that was truly mandated at our schools. It was optional at the principal discretion. We have a lot of areas in our staffing model that provide principals with discretion on staffing, with the intention being that they use the data that they know of their student populations to truly use that discretion to provide their campus what they truly need. As I and the team really looked at the staffing model this year, what it really came down to is attendance clerks shouldn't be optional. And so we're proposing moving that out of the optional bucket and providing it at 7 hours.
Okay.
I know that was a long-winded answer, but
Yeah, no, that's great, because I'm trying to process how that's operating now,
Yeah.
especially with everything that's tied to it and doing it well.
Yeah.
And to not have to have a principal try to decide to stretch something one way or the other in order to get a big enough window of time to complete a task, the task that the attendance clerks
I
typically
do
have to do.
believe,
So
yeah.
I appreciate the explanation, and I recognize that move as being pretty important. So
I do think with this change, our staffing model will be true to everything that's truly minimally required to run a school is provided under our staffing model. And those discretionary buckets truly are allowing our principals to use additional staffing to address individual needs on their campus. I think this was the last piece of the staffing model that was in the wrong bucket, if you will.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah, I think in general, anytime, we're creating new administrative positions or non-classroom positions, right? Like that can be difficult from a perspective of, okay, that doesn't impact our students necessarily, but as far as educating them. But I think with these positions and with this leadership team, these positions were designed and created with the student's best interest in mind, right? Like you can't operate in silos. You have to look holistically. And this, like you talked about, brings it to what it should be and what it should have been. I think it puts us in a good spot. So while this isn't technically classroom dollars, I think this will have an impact, especially, making sure that as a district, we're just shored up and stronger. I do want to circle back, just because this is the last questions and portion of this presentation. To earlier, I kind of got a little sidetracked and triggered when you mentioned sharpening the pencil, and it took me kind of to a place I didn't want to go, I guess. But I do understand that ASBE exists because of ASBA, right? It was created, I feel like ASBA is very beneficial to us and to the state, to its members. My biggest issue, and the sharpening the pencil kind of triggered it, was that ASBA, the revenue that it makes from schools and insurance and all that stuff, is a significant funding source of ASBA. And in my opinion, ASBA has not been a good steward of those funds, and their policy and agendas over the last several years, in my opinion, were not used correctly. And so my issue is that possibly our ASBA fees or our insurance costs could be less if we had less money going to ASBA to push those agendas. So just for clarification.
Ms. Wallace?
I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Ms. Moran?
Yeah, I have one question and then one comment, but actually I lied. I have a comment and then a question and then another comment. So my first comment is, I understand these tweaks as far as the, changes to the curriculum position as well as to the HR position. Totally in support of that. Obviously, would we know more, we will change things to better meet our needs. And so I understand that oftentimes that is going to require potentially a position with more experience, and that might cost us a little bit more. So I'm in favor of those tweaks. My question is, the community education generalist, is that anticipated to be a temporary position because of the succession planning, or is that really an under-supported department and we needed that anyway, and we're just now going to get around to filling that, and then it's going to end up obviously trickling down to those folks that fund that department, which is our preschool and our before and after school care?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think depending on what that ultimate succession looks like would really depend on if that ends up being a permanent position or not. There's really no two ways about it. The director of community education and wellness is the current title, is a massive job. If you take a step outside of school districts just for a moment and really put perspective on what we're asking that employee to do, they're running a fairly large and fairly successful childcare operation, and they're also running a fairly large and fairly successful preschool operation, which are two different things. One is very focused on education. One is still focused on education, but less structured. And in the past year or so, my timeline is a little fuzzy, we've also added student athletics to that position. And so I don't know if it's fully reasonable to think that that job can be done to the best of its abilities by one person. But it's possible.
Okay, that answers my question. I guess I take that to say that the department needs more support. Maybe we're not exactly sure based on how the current structure is, what that might look like 2 or 3 years down the road, depending on the succession and who is in what position at what point in time. But I'm hopeful that we will, rather than mold these positions around the people that we end up with, that we will decide what those positions should look like, and we will fill those accordingly when the time comes. So whether we decide to have preschool run separately and before and after school care run separately, and then I don't know what that's going to look like from an org chart perspective, but I hope that we are in the driver's seat with what makes the most sense for those positions and what that experience should look like. And Dr. Stair has done an amazing job, and I know he's been doing the job of multiple people for many years. So I'm glad that we are going to give him some support and maybe even revamp to make this department even better than it's been in the past. My last comment is on the attendance clerk position. I am in favor of that. Overall, especially if that can have any impact on the accuracy of the reporting in light of the chronic absentee problem. If they also have any additional time they can devote to correspondence with parents or anything like that, that would be helpful, I think, in helping to solve or be a step toward reducing that issue in the district as well. So hopefully that is something they can put in there when they have the time for that as well.
I do not have any questions, but I think that this is my 7th year now doing budget stuff. This might be the smallest list we've ever had, actually, of additional positions or modifications ever that I've been here. So that's pretty exciting. I think we are doing our jobs correctly in working within our budget and all of that stuff, which is very important right now. So more than ever with everything else in the world and other school districts that are not us. So thank you for all of the work you guys are putting into this, and I look forward to seeing how this progresses.
Ms. Idema, because it just happens tonight. I have to comment after you comment, so if you wouldn't mind.
Yep, go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. I just wanted to add, as we remember at the beginning of this year, we have our mission, believe theme. And for us this year is honoring the past and unlocking the future. And as I'm listening to the board speak, the thing I just keep reminded of is, yes, we're talking about now, but these experiences, these opportunities that Sandy and Michael are presenting tonight, they're really about the future. It's really about how do we ensure that we have the right people in the right seats, doing the right work. And many of you spoke to it on behalf of children. This district is a great place, but it's our job over here to just keep making it better. And so I just wanted to add, our thoughts around that future thinking in regards to our budget. So thank you.
I think that's all right. You guys are all done. Awesome. We have made it through big budget talk number 1 in 2025. Yay. With that, we are going to move on to reports. We will start with our report from Dr. Davidson.
All right. Thank you, Madam President. Here I am again. By the way, team, I'm just getting a little echo on this mic for what it's worth. So as I'm speaking, hopefully everybody can hear me okay. Certainly a lot things continue to happen, and I just want to celebrate and showcase some great things across our district. First and foremost, one of the things we had a chance to do today, and we met with our classified team a couple of weeks ago, is our Superintendent Advisory Council group. Just an opportunity for a superintendent and team to meet with a variety of educators, classified staff across our district, just to gain feedback on initiatives and just kind of hear from them what's going on in the world. Similar to what we share when we talk about our survey data, the voice of our employees does matter. And I think that was also seen tonight. So I just appreciate those people for being a part of that and sharing their thoughts with us. We've had a chance to be out alongside many of you at our governing board showcases and some of our team here in regards to our apple pie tours and just a really good conversation around the great things that are happening in our district. Also, just wanted to highlight some of the work that's going on with our safety team. Some of you may have seen the news story. We got positive press on the Southwest Safety Summit. So thank you, Moss, and our team for just their work and the work that we're seeing across the district around problem solving and just continuous improvement. Just those words continue to happen. It's one of those big elephants in the room that sometimes we don't want to talk about, but in light of some of the news coverage that's happening across districts in the Valley, just wanted to highlight some work that's going to come out on behalf of Litchfield Elementary. Mr. Nuanez and I have a little video coming out that just speaks to the community about where we are, our financial status, and just how things are going in Litchfield. And I'd run across an article of sorts that was written by a superintendent that had just some key words that I just want to highlight on behalf of the team that you have sitting out here and the team that's working on behalf of our Litchfield children. Transparency, accountability, integrity, fiscal responsibility, and compliance. Some strong words, but those are words that we value across our team. And hopefully you not just saw that tonight, but you continue to see that for a long, long time with us. Those are words, in my opinion, that lead to winning and being in a winning school district. And on behalf of winning, let's talk about some kids real quick. Many of you may have seen our athletes in basketball just did amazing things. Our varsity boys, they were not champions, but they had a great game and ended their season 10-2. That was our Western Sky Middle School varsity boys. Our varsity girls, Wigwam Creek beat Madison to end their season 12-0 as champions of their league. Our junior varsity boys, Dorado Middle School, beat the previously undefeated Madison Meadows to cap an 11-1 season. And our junior varsity girls, that's Belen Soto, they beat Dorado Middle School to end their season 11-2 for the championship. So just some great things happening on behalf of athletics. And, you know, I'll just simply end with thank you for your work. And if you didn't see it while we were celebrating our governing board tonight, we have some student posters done for you over there on the wall as well, just giving you things. So appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. We will move on to reports from governing board members, and you will start us off, Mr. Mikes.
Yeah, so just my report out, just a couple specific things that last week went to training, learned more about what this school board business is all about, and got to dive into some policies, legislative processes, and stuff like that. So that was really informative. I appreciate those opportunities. And then the most important one was on the 27th, we had an opportunity to visit Verado Elementary School, and once again, just kind of knocks it out of the park. I mean, what an amazing school that is. Just right when you step on campus, it's welcoming. It's they have everything together. Walking through, seeing the kids and the teachers interact with those students and in the instruction going on. The principal just doing an outstanding job with everything there. And then obviously we had there's amazing parent support out there as well. So it was a great visit, my first visit to that campus, but definitely memorable for me. So yeah, that was it. That was a great experience for me.
Mr. Owens?
Yeah, that attended words, right? So attended the Verado Elementary showcase, which was great. Principal Fantasy is doing a great job out there in her first year. Touring the campus, getting to go in, we had a great dialogue, a lot of discussion about kind of, you know, things they're looking at doing on campus, really making it her own after acquiring that principalship. I got to watch or sneak in on my kindergarten finishing lunch, and that's lunch with a bunch of kindergartners is quite exciting. And then I got to go to an assembly on Friday at Verado L as well. They do great. It's just so cool watching all the kids stand up and, you know, do the stuff and when to cheer and when to be quiet and sing the national anthem and say the pledge and say the school motto. That's the best part about, in my opinion, being a school board member, is just getting to see the kids, whether it's kindergarten, preschool, all the way up to 8th grade, just getting to see the kids be kids, because we all probably miss being a kid. And then lastly, I just want to say it is February, and in February we celebrate National Black History Month, which is an occasion to celebrate the contributions of so many Black American patriots who have helped shape our nation's history. So happy Black History Month.
Ms. Wallace?
I don't have much to share personally, but since our last meeting, the SSO officers have been in the schools, and I have heard personally from my own children as well as their friends how exciting that is for them. We are personally friends with a Goodyear police officer that has been picking up shifts each week in the schools. My kids love seeing him and seeing the other officers and developing those relationships. So I am loving hearing about that and love that they are there and the program is working as intended. So thank you.
Ms. Moran?
Well, for the first time in, I believe, 7 years, I have no official events to report during my board report. However, that does not mean I don't have things to say. So I would like to take this opportunity to talk about the bare bones basics of what I do as a governing board member in a month. At a minimum, I spend 2 hours a week on email correspondence and an additional hour or two going through our Friday update, which is a summary of various items from our executive team. Some items are for information only, some are for our consideration, and some lead me down a rabbit hole of research at the state and federal level. Then, to prepare for our meetings, that usually happen twice a month, I review the entire agenda and compile any questions and request information that I would like to have in advance to make a well-informed decision during the meeting and the voting process. This can take between 1 to 4 hours depending on the content and the topics that are covered in the agenda. So my average is about 3 to 10 hours per week, every week throughout the year, to be the best board member possible. And I say all of this just to illustrate to the public, the staff, and the families that I take this responsibility seriously. And I believe that my fellow board members do as well. We all spend a lot of time dedicated to this position. So to add on to the board member appreciation comments and video from the beginning of our meeting, I'm grateful to each and every one of you, my fellow board members, for your commitment and dedication to this board and district. Thank you. I will close with lyrics from Dave Matthews Band, Best of What's Around. Turns out, not where, but who you're with that really matters.
Okay, my turn. Actually, it was kind of a slow month, I feel like, for myself. I had a lot of personal things kind of going on. This month, since our last meeting, I was invited to participate at Coffee with the Principal at Rancho Santa Fe Elementary School. I was able to come in and talk about big picture, what does the governing board do? How can parents stay abreast of what's going on in the district? What's the best way to communicate with us? I got to share a lot of information, and I feel like actually Principal Zuniga learned a little bit from me too, so that was kind of fun. It wasn't a lot of people. I do like that our schools have done this Coffee with the Principal thing, and I'm hoping that we find a way to make sure that each of these events, we are making sure that they're valuable, because parents are not going to come if they don't find value in what it is that they're doing. And I think that anytime you can sit down and have a conversation with your principal and learn more about what's going on your campus, inviting guests in from district or governing board members, invite any of these people. I'm sure any of them would be willing to come in and talk. To get that more informal conversation with people is a good thing, because that's getting people in our schools, seeing what's happening, and then they understand that we are really here doing everything we can to offer the best education we can for these kids, and that's all we're here for. So I hope that we continue to work out that program going forward, and that principals are sharing best practices with each other of what they've seen be successful in topics that are discussed, and so that we keep that program going, because I know maybe some schools don't have as many people attending as they would like, and I don't want to see it go away, because in the past there's been some things where we've had curriculum nights and things like that where schools don't have enough people coming, they get rid of it, and I'd rather not see us get rid of it. I'd rather us see how do we make it be better so that people do come. I also attended the showcase at Verado Elementary School. It was exciting to see Miss Sarah Fantasia in her first year there. It seems like she's really doing a great job of connecting with her students and her families and her staff. I appreciate her willingness to just kind of come in and learn this first year and not try to make a lot of changes. I think most people know that Verado is its own special community, right? And you don't want to come in and just disrupt it. That would not be effective in that community. So I think she knew that coming in, and she's really taking the right approach to build that trust and relationship with the community out there before making any major changes, so that there's a mutual trust with them when those changes do come. I also was able to go with Dr. Davidson and Miss Jennifer Benjamin and others from district to hand out pennants for our national board certified teachers that were either renewing their stuff or getting it for the first time, and that was really fun. We had 2 staff members at Mabel and 1 at Western Sky, and every school has their own personality, and every principal definitely has their own flair. So walking into Mabel and the speaker going and walking through the campus, I thought, wow, this can't be distracting for students at all. But they all got into it. They had fun. The kids were excited. So it was really fun to go and do that. And I appreciate that our district makes a big deal out of it and that we were able to go and honor those members that did this. I understand one of our teachers did it in 1 year, which I think is amazingly also crazy. Like how you would fit all of those different things into 1 year when most people do it in 2, right? So thank you for inviting me to be able to come and do that. That was fun. And with that, I just want to thank my board members as well. There's a lot of stuff going on everywhere, but stuff going on in districts in our state that is just, I don't know, I scratch my head and ask what people are thinking, but I'm appreciative that we're here in this district and that we make responsible decisions and that we're all here being student-centered and student-focused every day. So thank you, all of you, for the time that you put in and keeping our students as the main focal point in every decision that we make. With that, thank you to our administrators that sent in their reports. Again, community members, please read that. It's great, chock full of information to know what's going on in our district and each of our campuses and all of our departments. Thank you guys for sending those reports into us. We really appreciate them. And with that, I think we are all done. So someone wants to make a motion.
A motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
Having a motion for Mr. Mikes and a second from Ms. Wallace, I'll call for the vote. Mr. Mikes?
Yay.
Mr. Owens?
Yay.
Ms. Wallace?
Yay.
Ms. Moran?
Yay.
I'm also a yay. Motion passes. Thank you guys for joining us. This meeting is